What is happening, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Lifting Ugly podcast. We have a very special guest on with us today, so making sure you stay tuned for that. Have my lovely co-host here to the side of me. Let her introduce herself.
I'm Julia Bird. Woo!
There we go. Waving works for those watching on video, but if they are just streaming audio, probably won't work too well. Just so you know. All right, so we're gonna cruise through this real quick so that we can get to our guest. As always, we encourage everyone to go to generalleathercraft.com to see our friend Pioneer Lifting, and let Julia tell you about some of the fine items that they have there at generalleathercraft.com.
Of course I'm going to address the dog collars. They have great dog collars. On the lifting side, they have lifting belts. Am I glitching super bad?
No, it's not too bad.
Okay. They have lifting belts. They have knee sleeves now, right?
Yes.
They're working on elbow wraps.
Sleeves.
Oh, elbow sleeves.
Right.
And then they also have wallets. I mean, really anything that you can imagine that can be made out of leather, they do it.
And even some things that don't. They also have knee wraps and straps that you can get from them as well. And knee sleeves are not leather based either. That would
they're not. No.
Super uncomfortable.
I don't know. Now I'm interested in trying it out.
Leather knee sleeves?
Yeah.
You could be pretty sweet.
And really expensive.
Really? So again, generalleathercraft.com for all your Pioneer lifting gear. You can follow Julia here at Julia R. Bird on the Instagram. Visit the show, follow the show, engage with the show at lifting_ugly, or search lifting ugly on any social media platform, YouTube, Twitch. Those are video sites, any of your audio listening pleasure places. Of course, if you're listening to this, I don't need to tell you because you already found one. So
you did it. Good job.
Yeah, you did it. But to help out, click the little thumbs up button. That's helpful. Click the subscribe button. That's also very helpful. You do those things, that helps the show get seen by other people, which is greatly appreciated by us. Also, you can go to liftingugly.com to get any Lifting Ugly type gear. Shirt Julia has on is the Wu-Tang inspired Lifting Ugly shirt. I have on the Great Equalizer plate shirt.
Yes.
So make sure to go to liftingugly.com for those things. We are now going to jump into our intro song and be back with our very special guest. Stay tuned. And welcome back, everyone, to the Lifting Ugly podcast. I am your host, Craig Bird. And if you're watching, right up above me is none other than my co-host,
Julia Bird.
There we go.
What? I just did.
I know. You were a little delayed, though, so call you on it a little bit. All right, we want to welcome our guest, none other than professional strong woman, Erin Murray. Thank you for being here today.
Yay!
Taking the time out. Anyone who doesn't know, was it, well, I guess I shouldn't say anyone who doesn't know. Was the Arnold like your real like out front performance for Strong Woman?
It was
or
definitely the biggest.
Have you competed?
Like in terms of just like exposure shows?
Yes.
So I'd say that the Arnold, and then I did a Giants live show last year too, the Battle of the Nations. That was a pretty big show in terms of just like audience and eyes. I mean, World's Strongest Woman is always kind of the biggest show, especially for us weight class athletes. It's a little bit less like spectator-y than those other shows, but it kind of depends on what you consider a big show. But yeah, the Arnold was definitely the most like eyes that I've ever had on me while I'm competing, in terms of just like the exposure and people that are watching.
So, and how did that affect anything that you did? How you approached it? Easier, harder?
You know, honestly, the first time I really was going to have a big audience was at the Giants live show last year. And I thought that it was going to make me nervous having like thousands of people and like the crowd cheering. And like, I thought that it would get in my head, and it really doesn't. And I know everyone's experience is probably different, but like when I go up to do the event, nothing else exists. Like there could be 5 people in the audience or 5 million people in the audience. And like, I don't hear or see anything when I'm actually doing the event. So it's more like the aftermath. It's like walking out and then like finishing and seeing everyone there. But when it's actually time to compete, I feel like it doesn't really matter because like my blinders are on and I don't really know what's going on around me anyways.
Just focus on the task at hand. Everything else is kind of it seemed like as soon as the event is over, like you're done with that final lift or whatever it is, then that's when like the crowd, you kind of re-notice the crowd.
Yeah, because then it's cool, especially when it's something that goes well and it's exciting. Like and there's that excitement. It is crazy to look up and see that there's like thousands of people celebrating with you. That's when it kind of like hits, and it's like, wow, like that was exciting for me. But it's also really cool to know that like other people get excited about it too. That's a surreal thing that I never expected to experience in my life. That like there's people wanting me to succeed also feels really cool.
Right. So I usually get way ahead of everything and ask a bunch of questions, and then I ask Julia if she has any, and by that point I've usually taken. So I'm gonna let her ask any questions she might have now, so that I don't just keep her quiet during the whole process.
So I'm gonna ask like the classic cheesy question, but what got you into Strong Woman?
So Strong Woman, I got into like 8 years ago. I powerlifted before that. So my like competitive strength journey started when I was 19. I'm 30 now, almost 31. I got into lifting midst of dealing with a lot of mental health issues. I went to college and actually had to drop out after my first year to come home and get help because I was really struggling with things. Part of what I started doing at that time was actually it started with martial arts. Ironically enough, that's not something that lasted very long, but I just kind of like latched onto it, and I ended up being kind of good at it, and so it kind of snowballed from there. I started doing CrossFit to get into better shape for martial arts, and then I really liked the more lifting components of CrossFit, so that kind of naturally gravitated towards powerlifting. I did that for like 3 years, and then in that time, I decided to go back to school. So I went back to study exercise science, and I met a bunch of people who were in the fitness world during that time, and 2 of those people ended up being Zach McCarley and Pat Castelli, who you might not know the names anymore, but at the time they were both phenomenal strongmen. And Zach's actually kind of coming back into the world of strongmen. And they had put on a fundraiser show to raise money because they had gotten invited to go compete in Norway, I believe. So I just jumped in because they were my friends and I wanted to support them. And it ended up being like the most fun experience. And I just love strongman because obviously it's about being stronger, but it's more than just like how much weight you can lift. And it made me feel more athletic and well-rounded. Those are the elements of like speed and endurance, and it just made me feel like more complete as an athlete, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so like, and even still, like I'm not the statically strongest in my class. That's never been my strength. So I was good at powerlifting, but I was never going to be like, unless I was willing to, do more than I was willing to do to get stronger. Like that wasn't my world, and strongman felt like, oh, this is where I belong. This is where I can showcase more like athleticism and like competition intelligence and stuff like that.
But
that's awesome.
I was just gonna say we've talked about many times the difference in I don't even know what weight type competitions. So whether it's bodybuilding, powerlifting, or strongman, and that these are my opinions. I won't attach them to anybody else. And I've done bodybuilding, but bodybuilding is not a sport; it's a pageant. Powerlifting is on the cusp. Like there's sport to it.
Okay.
But I don't. Powerlifters are athlete-esque.
So what's your stance on weightlifting then? Like Olympic weightlifting?
I would say they're definitely athletes.
Okay.
Because there's a lot more movement to it. And then strongmen, strongwomen is probably one of the most athletic parts of the whole strength-based gym competition world.
Yeah.
It's not something I can do anymore. I'm too broken to do any of it, but I sure enjoy watching anytime I can, just because I do appreciate the world.
I'm curious, because some people, do you include CrossFit on that spectrum?
I usually don't include it on any spectrum. They are athletes for sure. I mean, like the stuff they do is crazy athletic. I think it's better now than when it first became a big thing, just because a lot of people didn't teach it correctly.
Yeah, there was a huge wave of that.
Yeah, and so you just saw people getting hurt left and right from crazy type of lifting, and now nobody training them how to do it.
Yep.
And so they're just
and I feel like I started to get away from that, but I always I laugh and joke because I kind of feel like strongman is almost kind of like heavier CrossFit with weirder objects and less endurance.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the well-rounded of the events usually.
But it's more fun to watch than a CrossFit game.
So with, because I've always been interested in eventually transferring over from powerlifting into strongwoman. How was that how was it going from one to the other? Like what was like the main difference?
So there was a lot of technique that I had to learn. And I admittedly, looking back, I would do it differently because my first couple of years of strongman, I know that I just kind of tried to strength my way through movements. Mm-hmm. And eventually, for a lot of reasons, one of them being an injury, I kind of had to like step back and relearn everything. I think it's really easy when you're transitioning from like powerlifting to strongman to just kind of like strength your way through the events and not necessarily slow down and learn how to do them properly. I noticed that people coming more from like Olympic weightlifting into strongman kind of handle it better because they're used to having to like nitpick the technique and then they have to like strength into it as opposed to already having the strength and then having to take that like that ego check of like, no, strip it down. Just because you're strong enough to do it doesn't mean that you're doing it correctly. And like, it's hard. Like if I could go back, I would like make myself start over, like from scratch, relearn everything, and don't just because you can move something doesn't mean you're doing it the best way. And just like stripping it down and being a student again, and just take every single thing as if you've never lifted before and back to zero. And it sucks for the first year or two, but I wish I had done that because I think I could have avoided a lot of injuries and like mobility limitations that, you know, I'm really fighting to undo now and just go slow.
Yeah.
So,
when are you looking to make the switch?
I don't know. So I started powerlifting when I was 19. So, and I'm 20 now, so I've only been doing it for about a year, and I've only done one competition. So I think I want to get like another year in of powerlifting and do a couple more competitions this year. Cool. And then slowly start making that transfer over. At the gym I'm at now, they're a boxing / weightlifting gym. Cool. So I think I would start taking boxing classes to get that endurance more built up.
Awesome.
And then kind of make that switch over.
Nice. Well, any piece of advice that I wish that I had done, I know you're early enough that it's probably not an issue for you yet, but maintain your shoulder mobility.
Yes.
3 years can just destroy that, and it makes strong really hard.
Oh, I bet.
So when it comes to the competitions, because one of the cool things, but it's got to be really hard as an athlete in the competitions, is they basically just make up whatever event they want to per competition. Yep. So how do you approach your training on something that no one's ever seen before, or even something maybe they've seen but the implement's a little bit different?
Yeah, you see that a lot. Like either the implement you don't have access to, or sometimes you'll even get like mystery events where you don't even know what the event's going to be. I've been to contests where they completely changed the event. I remember one year nationals was supposed to be a Zercher yoke carry, and then the yokes they delivered didn't work for that event, so they just switched it to a normal yoke. No one had trained that. But I think it's just important to not over specify. Like if you get a series of events, it's like these 5 events, I don't think it's smart to like really over specify in just those things. It just kind of goes back to being well-rounded. I think just the best strongman athlete is always going to be the person that's just the most well-rounded and working on like all elements of fitness, all movement patterns. And I think just in general, if you're strong and move well, you can adapt on the day. It's the people that get like really hyper specific about the specific events that then you show up and you get thrown off if something's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like to throw like elements of unpredictability into training sometimes. Like I think it's smart, even if you know what the pick height's going to be on a farmer's, for example, or like on a frame, if you have the ability to train different heights, I think that's smart to do, like making kind of small adjustments. You know, we had natural stones at the Arnold. Obviously, no one had touched those stones before, but the more your hands on things that you're not familiar with, the more you can just learn to adapt in the moment, and encouraging your brain to work like that in training, it will carry over.
Right. So the Arnold, it seemed like they had the stone carry, which I don't think anyone had really, I mean, that's really hard. Even if you have access to something similar, the stones are not going to be the same shape, the same, cut the same.
Yeah. And that's a good example, because I admittedly went into that event so confident, but I was just training on like pins with plates. So I had the same rings. The rings felt great, but plates don't behave the same way as stones do. I was going to crush that event. Like in training, it's been going so well. I was like, I'm going to get like a lap and a half, and then I didn't even make it 1 lap because it just didn't feel the same. And I think some of it is being prepared for any scenario, but also being mentally prepared that if something doesn't feel the way that it felt in the gym or doesn't go as well, to not like get down on yourself. Because I did have that brief moment of like, wow, that was it, as soon as I came off. And then I had to like reframe to like, no, that was a thing I've never done before. Like that was a PR. I've never done that exact thing before. And you just have to like not let it get in your head.
And then on top of that, it looked like they were constantly banging into calves and shins and.
Oh yeah, that looked brutal.
Yeah, I was surprised that event. I thought it was going to be more of a grip event. So, and my grip has always kind of been something that I've struggled with and had to work really hard. So we worked on like the grip aspect of it so much. And then it was kind of a shock because it didn't end up feeling like a grip event for me. Like my grip was actually fine by the end. My hips were so tired from having to like push my leg against the stones the whole time because they were crashing my knees in so much that I wasn't really prepared for that. And that kind of goes back to like, I got too hyper specific on the thing that I thought was going to be the challenge in that event. And then it ended up being not what I expected. And I hadn't trained for that.
And then, so like, the deadlift event, for example, how do you, like the gamesmanship aspect of it, where you're probably on the smaller side as far as size of female competitors, and kind of the range of where your deadlift's at versus some of the others. So how do you go into that, approach that? I mean, when there's somebody that can start, at a weight that's higher than your, last attempt.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not going to win this event. So how do you, the gamesmanship wise, how do you approach that?
So it depends too. From a personal level, the goal is just always PR. So like Arnold was never a show that I was going to win. Like I'm not a 6'3", 250 pound, like So for me, it was just place as high as possible. And I think the goal should always be to PR on the contest floor. I think when people try to like push too far is when you start getting hurt. Like you're not gonna gain 50% strength increase in a single day just because you try hard. Like I think the goal should always be to PR. So that was the goal. And then for something like that, not looking at what are the top women in the group doing, but what are the women that are most closest to my skill level doing? Like if I'm hoping to take somewhere in like the bottom middle of the pack, like what athletes am I expecting to be close to me? And then kind of gaming jumps to either force them out early or force them to go like quicker. And thankfully I have a great coach that like took care of that for me, so I didn't have to think about the numbers. So we kind of talked generally beforehand about like what range was I comfortable opening at, what range did I kind of want to end at, and thankfully I had a coach that could kind of take care of like how to plan those jumps in between. But with an event like that, especially when it's rising bar, there's a lot of strategy that goes into picking weights that kind of force your competitors to either have to go a little bit heavier than they want to, or to maybe have to like go immediately after themselves. The timing gets really tricky, and there's actually a lot of thought and strategy that goes on in the back room with making numbers and kind of trying to force people to do things that they don't want to do.
Right. I noticed it a lot like on the men's side of it. And when you had, you know, was it Dan Bell that opened it in the 900s? And then of course, you know, have Thor that comes in and just lifts once.
Yeah.
And, you know,
but
everyone like
him.
Yeah, but like, you know, like you said, I mean, the rest of the pack knows that they're not going to touch, you know, some of those numbers, and so they just gameplay with everyone in their kind of in their range, is what you're saying.
Yep.
Like don't try and overshoot what you know what is in your realm of possibility.
Yeah, because I think that when people are competitive in strongman, it's not about winning events. It's about accumulating points. And I think that people get that kind of mixed up, and that's where people make mistakes, is that like you don't have to win a single event to win a show. And sometimes pushing yourself and trying to win an event and picking numbers that are out of your ability and being dumb about it could actually cost you the title if you have a short-sighted mindset of I need to win this event instead of how does this one event play into the greater picture of this whole show, and how many points do I need throughout the show consistently to place on top, not necessarily just one event at a time.
Right.
So I think you saw that with, if I remember correctly, Hooper.
Oh yeah, he's like a craftsman with playing the numbers.
Oh, good as that. Even on the deadlift, like he was capable of deadlifting more than he did that day, but he didn't need to, because he knew he wasn't going to beat Thor. I think Bobby got second. Maybe he could have gone head to head with Bobby, but looking forward at the show and where, you know, Bobby's strengths and weaknesses are, he could kind of game plan, like I'm going to get this many points on him here, so I don't really need that extra point right now. I can save it for later. And there's a lot of thought and strategy that goes into that. Like that 1 point wouldn't have really mattered, and it might have just made him more tired. So
right.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, he's all right. Pretty good.
Did you have any other questions, Julia?
No, I think I got all my questions answered, actually.
Okay, good. All right, so I know you've posted about this before, but just for anyone that's listening that maybe hasn't gone through your Instagram, the face paint and the braids. Can you run us through that? I know you kind of touched on it when you talked about like the mental health issue in school, and I'm not assuming, I read it, so I know that's kind of where that stems from, but I would like, if you'd be willing, I'd love to hear you kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, so it's really just about becoming a different person. And I've gotten a lot better, but my whole life I've always struggled with like social anxiety, performance anxiety, stage fright. I've been really like shy and introverted. There's a lot of things that I've like worked through, especially being part of this world and challenging myself out of that comfort zone. But when it comes to like competing, I really need to tap into a different headspace, not just like on the contest floor, but like the entire day. So I'm not getting like caught up in what other people are doing or saying or thinking. Like I'm not the person in the back that's like joking around. Like I kind of stay in that headspace. And I did that for years without doing the makeup or anything like that. And it worked okay. But a couple years ago, I actually started doing makeup over like COVID quarantine times. It just became a hobby and something that I really started to enjoy doing. And so my coach and I actually had this idea of kind of merging the two, of like actually kind of creating a new persona, like to show up as someone else. And it's nice because it allows me to kind of start the day in a relaxing way. It's kind of just like some quiet time to myself where I can just be artistic and kind of get my head out of being nervous or whatever is going on. And then it allows me to transform into someone else. So like even throughout the day, if I'm starting to feel a little bit anxious or something, if I just like see myself in the mirror or something, I'm like, oh no, shit, like that's who we are today. And it's just like a reminder of, you know, Erin's not the one competing. Like someone else kind of takes over during that day, and it's a different headspace. And I think some people, I think it helps me a little bit too, because I think for years people thought that I was just a bitch because they would only see me at shows. And I'm actually really friendly and nice in real life, but people would only see me in that context, and they would think that like, wow, she never talks to anyone, like she won't even look at me, like all these things. And it almost gives me like permission to be like, this isn't me. And there's actually a visual representation of like, this is not me anymore. And at the end of the day, I can wipe it off and we can go get drinks or whatever it is.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
It's just the warrior paint, braids, just... And it's funny, when I read that, I just thought about, you know, when I was much younger and used to play whatever sport. That's basically kind of how, like, I put on a uniform, I put on a helmet, I put on anything, and then that I would have like the same transformation. Not that I've never been. I mean, I choose to be an introvert mostly now, just because I'm tired of being out there, you know. It's just but when I was younger, I didn't struggle with that kind of stuff, but there's definitely an aggressiveness that I choose not to have on a regular daily basis, that
because you shouldn't.
Right, exactly. Not especially the aggressiveness that it takes when you go into sport, you know. That's and so it was like, you know, put the helmet on and become somebody else. In the meet that we did in November, it was like once the singlet went on, it's, you know, you're like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, you know. And then that's
and I think a lot of people have something that they use for that. I think mine is just very in your face, but I think a lot of people kind of have something that gets them into that headspace, whether it's like certain music that they listen to or, you know, whatever it is. Mine's just a little bit out there.
When I saw you walk out, I was like, all right, that's like the coolest thing I've ever seen.
No, it was awesome.
I was like, I didn't even know you could do that, like that they would let you do that. And I was like, damn, I don't know why that's never been done before.
And I've started to see more people do it too, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
So how long does that take? Like braids, and I know that probably goes at a different time.
So the braids, that's more, I'll do that before. That takes like 5 hours to do before, but I leave them in. That's more a product of, I shaved my head last year because I killed my hair after 15 years of straightening and bleaching and dyeing and all those things. And I was like, where's going but this, whatever this is, doesn't fit with the war paint very well. So
no, we have the same thing. Same here. So we're with you on that.
Yeah, so it's a new edition. The makeup probably takes an hour and a half in the morning, but I do feel like every year, like I keep having to like up the ante a little bit, and like I'm running out of ideas. I keep saying that, but then I come up with new ideas. But I feel like every year, like do a little bit more. So I don't know, maybe it'll start taking longer.
So you mentioned that some people use music to focus. Do you use music to help you focus going in? And
Not
if
really.
so, okay, so it's
I have
not
one
a driving
I have
force.
one song. Sometimes if I'm feeling like I need something, it's a Requiem for a Dream. There's no lyrics. It's more like kind of symphonic music. In general, I don't like things with lyrics because I don't know. I just don't. it distracts me in a way that I don't feel like is productive. I in general don't like wearing like headphones or earbuds. I have like sensory things or something that like makes me feel phobic, and I don't like not being aware of my surroundings. So if I can choose to like have a song on in the background, I'll choose that song. But I'm not usually a fan of headphones. It makes me feel like I'm not aware of what's going on. I actually don't listen to a whole lot of music before. So I know that everyone's usually in back with like their headphones and they're like getting in their headspace, and I don't. It's weird because I like to kind of be in my own space, but I don't like to feel closed off.
That makes sense.
Like don't bother me. Like I'm gonna be here in the environment, but don't bother me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and with everything else you said, it does make sense in the way that it seems like if you have headphones on and it closes you off, it feels like it could potentially be like not really a safety thing, but kind of you feel more comfortable being aware of your environment around you than being completely just narrow and closed.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it makes sense. I just, like you said, I think kind of people everyone's got their thing and their way of
just
doing
gotta figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone needs to figure out what works for you, and like if it's weird, like don't apologize for it. Like
no.
Like at first, like the first time I did the war paint, there was a little bit of me that's like, this might be embarrassing. Like, especially if I don't perform well, like am I gonna look dumb? And I think people like let go of that. Like if something helps you and like helps you feel confident, then do it. Like that's your day to showcase what you've worked for, and like whatever helps you do that better. And I don't have to worry about what's normal.
No. Well, especially in these worlds,
nothing we do is normal.
Right. So
that's true.
if you try and be normal, you're gonna have a sad event anyway.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna do a game that we do. I mean, you came from the powerlifting era, so white lights, red lights. So basically, what's the best versus the worst? What is a passing score for something, and what's a failing score for something? And so I'll ask first, what is your knowledge of superheroes? Are you a superhero fan?
Very casually, but minimal knowledge.
Okay. But you know who like characters are, like general characters and stuff.
General. Yes.
All right. So the one I thought of is we're going to do a couple actors who have played superheroes and multiple superheroes. And so which one of their superheroes they played was the best one.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So first is Chris Evans. If you know Chris Evans.
Yep.
Okay. So one of Chris Evans' superheroes that he played is obviously Captain America. That's the most known one. The second one is he was the Human Torch in the first Fantastic Four movie.
That's right. He was. I forgot about that.
Obviously, Chris Evans as Captain America has more notoriety, but which character of Chris Evans gets white lights? Well, I wouldn't say which one gets red lights. How about we do which gets three whites and which one gets 2 whites? We won't completely fail one of them.
All right, that's nice. Is this in terms of like my opinion?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Human Torch, because I've never been a huge Captain America fan. I'll be honest, so I'm gonna go with the Human Torch.
He's too good. He doesn't.
Yeah, it's too like.
He doesn't have that. Yeah. He doesn't have that gray. Yeah, you need to have that little gray area that'll,
I agree.
to make some decisions.
Yeah.
All right, Julia, where are you at with it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the original Fantastic Four movie is one of my favorite superhero movies, and most of that is because of the Human Torch, so I have to go with the Human Torch. And also, like, I feel like Chris Evans, I mean, he played Captain America great, but I feel like he fits the Human Torch more.
He was able to be more sarcastic.
Yeah, and I feel like that's more, fits, but I don't know. I feel like he just played the Human Torch better.
All right. And then the second one, speaking of sarcastic superheroes, we're going to go with Ryan Reynolds.
I knew it. He's sarcastic.
So Ryan Reynolds, you can say he's played 2 superheroes, but I'm going to say it's 3. So obviously we all know him as Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
There's also Green Lantern. And then there's also Deadpool from the X-Men that he did, which was same, it's still Deadpool, but it was a different Deadpool.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, they sewed his mouth shut so he couldn't talk, and he didn't have the suit. I mean, this one's kind of easy for me anyway to categorize them, but I just thought it was funny that we have guys that play multiple superheroes within the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Deadpool. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen Green Lantern, so I can't attest to that. But I'm gonna just
go with that. You're not missing much by not seeing it. So
I didn't hear great things, so I didn't bother.
Right.
I was going with the original Deadpool.
Okay. So Deadpool, probably Deadpool who can't talk, and then Green Lantern. So I can't remember which X-Men it is, but one of the X-Men, it's
X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh, okay. That's because he fights Wolverine at the end.
Yeah,
he's Ryan Reynolds in the beginning, and all he does is talk shit and kill people with swords, and then he gets transformed into a version of Deadpool. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a good character, but definitely.
Are you choosing the no mouth Deadpool?
That's number 2.
Okay.
His Deadpool character now is like flawless.
It's pretty great.
I mean, it's a you don't even have to like comic books or anything to appreciate the Deadpool movies.
Yep.
I'm actually going to go in a little bit of a different direction.
Uh-oh.
Deadpool, like Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, like the current one is still number 1, but for some reason I actually really enjoy Green Lantern. I am definitely in the minority there, and I know it, and it's like my guilty pleasure is I actually really enjoy Green Lantern. So it'd be Green Lantern and then Quiet Deadpool.
All right.
And then his Deadpool now is the last one?
No, Deadpool now is the first one, and then Green Lantern.
Oh,
okay.
And then,
Okay, gotcha.
The different podium order.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. But like I said, try not to take too much of your time. One thing I do want for you to do before we go is kind of plug and promote anything you have, anybody you work with, sponsors, your own social media, whatever.
Yeah, so you can find me on social media. It's e.murray_pro.strongwoman. Really trying to build that, especially Instagram up right now. Recently started working with Silverback. You can see I've got their shirt on. They're primarily a UK-based company, but working on coming over to America, and their products are amazing. Super excited to be working with them. They've got a whole new line of supportive equipment. Also working on a whole lot of new women's clothes. So I've only been with them for a couple months, but I reached out to the beginning of this year because I was really excited about what they were doing. I'm just really excited to see where they go over the next couple of years as they kind of emerge more into the equipment side of things. So, and then I work with Reach Supplements. They're also a fairly new company. Silverback's not new; they're just kind of newer in the States. But Reach is new as of last year. They're really working on putting together really holistic supplements. They have a pre-workout out now that has greens and creatine, electrolytes, nootropics, and all this stuff. They're doing really cool things, and they have a lot of really cool new products coming out soon. So all that's going to be over on my Instagram if you're interested in seeing what's new with that.
Sweet. And what I'll have you do, if you can send me or I guess if the websites and everything are attached to your Instagram.
Yep.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll attach those to the description in the show, so that way anyone can go down and look at the info, and they can click the links directly to supplements and your Instagram page as well.
Okay. Awesome.
Or and not just the supplements, but the supplements and then the Silverback as well.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you again for coming on. We do appreciate the time. This is going to be released at a normal time, not just on a random Tuesday. So well, we're going to release it. So as far as anyone knows, this is Saturday. So thank you for taking your time out and joining us.
I appreciate it.
Look forward to just kind of seeing your development and moving forward to the next events. When is your next event?
So kind of unsure. I kind of had a rough idea for the year, but they did just announce that the Rogue Invitational is inviting women. And I don't know how they're going about doing the invites. I'm not sure how they're picking athletes, but I'm crossing all of my fingers and toes for an invite to that. I think last year the invites went out in like May timeframe. So at this point, just kind of waiting to see what happens with that, because that would be the priority. So things are kind of just on pause right now. But in the meantime, just kind of crossing my fingers for an invite to Rogue.
What about, is Brian Shaw doing another event this year?
He is, yeah. So Shaw's doing the Shaw Classic. That's a really big show. JF Carone is inviting women to the North Americas this year. I have an invite to that. I'll probably be doing that. That was in July. World at the end of the year. That's not until December, so it's a while for that. I'll do that. What weight class I do kind of depends on what other things I do throughout the year, so that's still kind of on the fence. But I think Worlds is the only thing that's like for sure. Americas is probably, and then Shaw would be cool if Rogue doesn't pan out. I don't know. There's just kind of a lot of things, and you have to figure out how the timing of all of them work. But I guess those are kind of the 4 shows that are on the radar.
Well, if you end up at the Shaw, then we maybe see you here in Colorado then.
Oh yeah, because that's where you're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're on the other side of the state.
Regardless, so.
Yeah, he usually, I think he's had it at Estes Park, which is a few hours away from where we're at, but Estes Park is always worth a drive anyway, let alone
That's true.
Go some cool strongman stuff, strongwoman stuff.
That's worth it. If it's drivable, it's worth it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Everyone go check her out. E.Murray _ Pro Stronwoman.
Long title.
So check that out at Instagram. If you want to second guess any of those, just check the info. I'll have links to everything associated with Erin Murray here at those locations. Again, thank you very much, and hope everyone has a great day.
See you later. Thank you so much.